subject, and I studied it, I read about it, and I decided to bring my knowledge together with these dramatic events and create a novel.
Let's go back right to your early days. As a student in Brazil, we were talking a little while ago about your compendium of poems that you wrote. Tell us a little bit about the final stage of the, let's say, the publication of poetry. What actually happened, and how did it precipitate the next stage of your career?
I wrote it in that introduction, and I said, the power of poetry, how it changed my life. I was a very modest poet in Brazil. I started writing poems when I was 14 maybe, or 13. I collected all my poems when I went to engineering school, and I had them published in the print plant of the engineering school. I just paid the fellow that worked there, and he did that in the evenings. He did that on his own. And then the Brazilian SCNE at the time, which was the National Service of Information, I didn't know they would routinely check whatever was came out printed from engineering school, and then they went to the director of the school saying that that had been published there, and it was written, it was called Implosion. So it was tailor-made to attract their attention. So I was very afraid, and the director was worried, and I was worried. So I went and I talked to these military people, and I asked them what can happen. And the officer actually told me, well, what can happen is that basically, if they open what's called an investigation, you cannot leave the country. And at that time, I was a finalist for a Fulbright scholarship, and I had everything arranged. I was going to get it, and all I needed to do was do a few things, and I would get it. But then I didn't tell my father about it, but I just told him that I forfeited my graduation, but I think I told him, but I took off right away before they would open such a thing, and I forfeited so I came to Denver as a walk-in, basically, at university. And I was fortunate, I got an assistantship, but my life was changed by this event. I was going to go to one university, and I went to another one, and I was going to go, and so actually it was directed more towards research.
And had you followed the other route, where do you think you would be
I
today?
probably would have gone into, the other school was more into the Colorado School of Mines was more into administrative, more into management, more into industrial aspects. And I probably would have followed a path that would be an industrial career. And because of that, my career was changed to a research career because of poetry.
It's interesting.
So
Tell us a
my
little
own.
Sorry, go ahead. Tell us a little bit about the New Mexico Institute of Mining and Technology.
Yeah, and then I happened to do my research, you see, when I was at the University of Denver, and they had a Center for Explosives Metalworking. And I was hired as an assistant in an assistantship in that institute. Not that I had any interest in it, but I was basically involved, and then so I started working with explosives to strengthen metals with explosives. So I did my doctoral thesis on that. After that, I returned to...
If you don't mind, can you explain to the audience how you strengthen metals with explosives?
Yeah, the metals have a certain ability to withstand loads. And the specific project that I was working that was super alloys, nickel-based super alloys. These are alloys that are used in the turbines, in the jet turbines of airplanes. And the idea was if you take these alloys and you put an explosive and you detonate an explosive in contact, it becomes stronger and it becomes able to withstand larger loads or higher temperatures.
So
the crystalline structure becomes tougher, and there are processes of technically it's called dislocation generation, interaction with precipitates, and it changes the precipitate size and etc. And we actually demonstrated that was happening. So I finished that, and I went to Brazil, and the military, I went to work for actually as an IRA to the Military Institute of Engineering, and they gave me a job there, and I created the first laboratory for explosives technology in Brazil. And I started working with explosives, and which, as you know, is a pretty dangerous thing. was working there one day in the lab, in the field, and the general came by and said, Marc Meyers, Meyers, you're working here all by yourself? I said, yes, General, I have no help. And he said, wait a minute, he was terrified, so he sent an ambulance to be sitting there by the lab as a precaution. So I said, I took the ambulance driver, I said, why are you sitting here? Come and help me. Help me with the explosives.
You didn't explain to him that if something goes off, the ambulance wasn't necessary.
No, both of us will be taken care of.
Very interesting. And then after Brazil, you returned to the United States.
I returned to the United States. I went for a short time in South Dakota, but then I went to New Mexico, and they have a large proving ground behind